Today I'm going to be showing you how to use the paste method to make a variety of sauces and a pudding. We have here custard powder sauce, which is one of the more common uses. We have a jam sauce, which is a very sweet sauce. We have the Blancmange or cornflour mold, which is a pudding made by the paste method. Here we have a sweet sauce that has butter dissolved in it to make it richer. And then we have here a rich brown gravy that is made with the paste method using a commercial product using starches to thicken the gravy. We're going to start off with the simplest of the paste methods, which is making custard powder sauce. I have here 250 milliliters of milk, 15 grams of custard powder with a pinch of salt added to it, and 15 grams of sugar. I'm going to switch on the stove. I'm going to add the sugar to the pot. I'm going to add 3/4 of the milk. And while that is heating up, I'm going to make a paste of the custard powder. To this, I'm now going to add cold milk and stir it so that there are no lumps. The reason why we do this is because the custard powder is made from maize flour or corn flour, which is another name that we use. And if we don't add it to cold milk, it forms lumps because the outer covering of the lumps cooks and the insides remain raw. This is now well stirred and there are no lumps of custard powder. Please remember that custard powder has no egg in it, and it is made from maize flour, mealies, ground mealies. So therefore it contains no wheat, and we can use it without worrying about allergies. The milk is not quite hot enough. The custard powder is made out of maize starch. We add a little bit of salt for flavoring, and then the flavoring and coloring has been added to make it look like an egg custard, an egg custard sauce. The milk is now hot, and I'm going to add it to the custard powder paste to even the temperature, and then I'm going to pour it all into the pot, and I'm going to stir it until it boils. I'm using a milk pot, milk saucepan, which does not have a lid, and it has these two pouring lips, which makes it very much easier to use. It's called a milk pot because any milk that you have to heat can be done in this, and you won't be tempted to put a lid on the pot and cause the milk to boil over. Must stir continuously to prevent lumps from forming on the base of the saucepan. And we use a wooden spoon so that, and not a metal spoon, so that the metal doesn't scrape against metal. The wooden spoon is much gentler on the metal of the saucepan. Right, once the custard thickens and starts to boil, we turn it down. And we allow it to boil for about half a minute, just so that all of the starch is cooked and you don't have a raw starch taste to your custard. To serve the custard, we pour it into a jug. Here we're using an attractive glass jug. Scrape the custard out of the saucepan. And to prevent a skin from forming on the custard, which it does very easily, you can either cover it with a ring of greaseproof paper, or you can sprinkle a small quantity of caster sugar on the top of the custard. And then your custard will cool down and can be used to serve with your pudding. I'm going to make 3 variations using the paste method: 2 sweet sauces and a gravy. Now, the one that I'm going to make now is known as a jam sauce. I'm going to place the jam, which is smooth apricot jam, into the saucepan. I'm going to place the sugar, and I'm going to place 3/4 of the water. And put it on the stove so that the water and the jam and the sugar can all mix and dissolve together. Here I have corn flour, which I am going to place in the bowl. And to it, I'm going to add the remaining cold water, which I'm going to stir to remove the lumps, to mix it thoroughly. Here I have my jam mixture, which is boiling. I'm going to add some of the hot water to the corn flour. Even out the temperature, and then pour it into the remaining hot water and stir it until it boils. This is a very sweet sauce because of the apricot jam and the extra sugar. We must boil it for at least a minute to see that the corn flour is well cooked, and to reduce the sauce and make it slightly thicker. The sauce has now cooked for long enough. And to it, I'm going to add 5 milliliters of lemon juice. This is to counteract the sweetness of the sauce by giving it a slightly tart flavor. Once again, I'm going to pour the sauce into a serving jug. It has retained its good yellow-orange color from the apricot jam. You can also use raspberry jam, which would give you a blue-black sauce, or strawberry jam, which would give you your pink-red sauce. All of those jams are suitable, and we put the ladle in, and the sauce is ready to be served. I'm going to make a sweet sauce. It's very like a custard sauce, but can be flavored with different flavorings. And it's just a variation on the method because butter is added to enrich the sauce. And we have to explain that process as we go along. My sugar, I'm going to add my sugar to the pot. I'm going to add 3/4 of my milk to heat up. And to that, I'm going to add my butter. And as the milk heats up, so the butter is going to melt, and we have got to wait until it is melted completely so that it combines with the sauce more easily. I'm going to pour my corn flour into my glass bowl, my glass mixing bowl. And add the cold milk to it to form a paste. I'm going to stir it to remove any lumps, which is done. And my milk is heating up on the stove. The sugar has dissolved in the milk as it heats up, and the butter has melted into the milk as well. Now I'm going to take the hot milk, pour it into the cold paste, even out the temperatures, and pour it back into the pot to heat up and thicken. This sauce is a pudding sauce. It's used for various puddings. You can make a chocolate sauce by putting cocoa into it and using it with ice cream. We are going to flavor it with vanilla, which is the simplest of the options. You can also add alcohol to it, such as brandy, and make a brandy sauce, which you would then pour over a Christmas pudding. The sauce is boiling, and we will allow it to boil for half a minute to remove the raw starch taste. Once the sauce has boiled for long enough, we remove it from the heat and we add the vanilla essence last, because the vanilla flavor is very volatile and you don't want to actually boil it with the sauce. So the vanilla is added, in this situation, is added at the end of the process. I'm going to pour the sauce into the jug. Place the ladle in it, and there we have a sweet sauce. To do something totally different, using the paste method, I'm going to make gravy. This is gravy that we are going to make without using sauces from roast meat, but gravy that we could use over meatballs or some sort of dish like that, or cold roast meat that we need a sauce for. And switch on the stove. And in this jug, I have beef stock, which is made from boiling water and a stock cube, which are readily available at the supermarkets. I'm going to put 3/4 of the stock in my pot to heat up, and to that I am going to add some mixed herbs, a pinch of mixed herbs. In a glass bowl, I'm going to add Bisto, which is one of the commercial products that is used for the making of gravy. Now, Bisto is made from starch, usually maize or corn starch, and also flavoring and coloring so that it gives us a rich brown gravy. I'm going to add some mustard powder as well to heighten the flavor. And I'm going to make a paste with the remaining cold beef stock. This is a little bit more difficult to remove the lumps, so you can squash them with the wooden spoon against the sides of the dish. The flavor of the boiling stock with the mixed herbs is very attractive, the smell and the flavor. I think I've removed all the lumps from my cold paste. To that, I'm going to add my boiling stock. And once I have mixed it, I'm going to return it to the heat. And stir it until it boils. Because the starch used in Bisto has been altered, it will thicken the gravy, make it shiny, but it will remain slightly transparent or translucent. And here we don't have to cook the gravy for any length of time because the starch has been pre-cooked. There, our gravy is ready. It smells very appetizing. And we are going to pour it into the gravy jug. And there we have a rich brown, attractive gravy. I'm going to make a blancmange, which is also an illustration of the paste method. Blancmange can also be called a cornflour mold, which gives you an idea of the fact that it is set in a mold. I am going to add my sugar to my milk pot, and then I'm going to add 3/4 of my milk and allow that to heat up. In a glass bowl, I'm going to add my corn flour. Now, because we're making this pudding from scratch, the corn flour has no flavoring. It is just made from crushed maize, very, very fine powder. Once again, we're going to mix it with cold milk so that we have no lumps. I'm adding my cold milk to the corn flour. And stirring it to see that there are no lumps of corn flour. That seems to be well mixed. Because I'm going to make a lemon flavored blancmange, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow coloring, and it's very much easier to use an eyedropper to dispense your food coloring. You can then very easily control the amount. And I'm going to add lemon essence to flavor it. Once again, using an eyedropper. I don't think that is yellow enough because it's going to be diluted. So I'm going to add 2 more drops of yellow coloring. My milk is about to boil, so I'm going to add that. It's hot milk into cold paste to even the temperature. Pour it all back into the pot. Return it to the heat and stir it until it boils. Looking at the color of the milk, it's not yellow enough. So this is when you can adjust your coloring. I've added 3 more drops. That looks much better. You must remember that you can use chocolate, using cocoa, or using ordinary chocolate, melting it in the milk. You can use strawberry essence. You can use coffee essence. You can virtually make the blancmange any color and any flavor that you want. Corn flour itself has no flavor, so therefore you have got to flavor it. Vanilla is also an option. Stir it slowly to prevent lumps from forming. The larger the quantity of milk that you use, the longer it's going to take to boil. You must remember that if you don't stir it, the milk is going to catch on the bottom of the pot, and it's going to burn. The blancmange is starting to thicken. As the starch cooks, you can actually see that it becomes shiny, so the sauce that you are stirring in the pot is going to have a very nice satiny finish or shiny finish. Starting to boil, so I'm going to turn it down and let it boil for about half a minute, just to see that there is no raw starch taste. Once the corn flour mold has boiled, we are going to pour it into an aluminium mold. As you will notice, I have filled the mold with cold water so that when I set the mold in it, it does not stick to the sides. I am going to throw out the water and I don't dry the mold stays wet. And I'm going to then pour the corn flour mixture into the mold. This mold is then placed either in crushed ice with coarse salt to cool down, or once it's cooled down to room temperature, you place it in the refrigerator so that it can become well chilled before you turn it out onto a plate to serve it. Here I'm going to illustrate the use of crushed ice and coarse salt to cool down any type of pudding, whether it is a blancmange or whether it is a gelatine pudding. This will cool it down very quickly indeed. You have the crushed ice, and to it you are going to add at least 3 tablespoons of coarse salt. This reduces the temperature of the ice to -4. This is why it is so much quicker to do it. And you place your mold in the crushed ice and you ease the ice around it so that it's touching the metal surface. It's quicker to use a metal container for any type of pudding that you want to chill as quickly as possible, because the metal is a very good conductor of heat. So the heat is then drawn out of the pudding into the ice. This blancmange was made earlier on. It is now set, and I'm going to show you how to turn it out. The blancmange is moving in the container because we made this container damp as well. I'm going to take a plate and place it over the pudding and hold the pudding with my fingers so that it is in the center of the plate, and I'm going to flip it over. Now I'm going to lift the mold off. And there we have our strawberry flavored blancmange, which you could serve with fresh strawberries or fresh fruit, and we are going to decorate it with a cherry and mint leaves, just to make it look attractive. We are going to demonstrate 2 different sweet sauces, and you could very easily display this with one of the sweet sauces around the blancmange.